Good afternoon. It's April 11th. Being busy taking care of myself these days. I got to do that as I'm getting older. What do you need to know today? Well, I think what you need to know today that all hell is about to break loose. And I don't have any clues or tips on this. My hunch is that one of two things is up next. One is going to be maybe the financial collapse of the dollar. I don't think that's going to happen because they're about ready to take this market up to new highs. And I know most of you can't believe that they can inflate it more, but that's exactly what the purpose is. To steal assets from us little people. They want to strip us of all of our assets. In order to do that, they can't collapse the dollar just yet. They got to have us chasing it around, making us think it's worth something. Well, my best hunch is that they're going to get ready to pull the old electricities out and it's not coming back on thing. They don't do that very often, do they? Well, the problem is that there's plenty of ways for them to cover their tracks on this one. The sun is acting up and we are at the end of an earth age. They know that stuff is coming anyway. And it will get here at some point because there'll be so much electricity on this planet that you're going to see incredible plasma displays on the surface. And you'll have to retreat subsurface to be able to survive this stuff. I think what you need to know is that in the Bible, the Jews made the mistake of thinking that there was only one coming of Yeshua, of Jesus, that he was only going to come one time. And so when he didn't come and wage war and do victory, they were very disappointed. That wasn't the kind of Messiah, the kind they didn't want. Well, what they failed to realize from the prophets is that he comes back at least 2 times. And from what I can tell, it looks like there's going to be 2 more times. Another thing I think you need to know is that we have the day of the Lord. In that day, in the latter times, there's all kinds of key words to clue you up, code words to let you know what he's talking about. And what you need to know is it looks to me like there's 6 different days of the Lord. Now, one of those days of the Lord, Joshua comes back, foot touches the Mount of Olives. There's an earthquake, it splits in half. Another day of the Lord, he returns in the clouds, bringing angels with him. So folks, remember that we ended up with 200 angels, bad guys, fallen angels on this planet. So there's 200, we ended up with, that's 200. So if that's 1/3 of the heavenly hosts, means there's approximately 400 angels that are still in good standing. They're still doing their jobs. They're still living according to the way they were designed. They're doing the right thing. So we could see them come here. We got to be careful about that one because these lizard people are saying that their brothers and sisters are coming here to help them too. And I think what's kind of scary is the concept that we all might be just being reared to become food for these aliens. I know it's a wild concept, but I'm going to get it out there right now. And if you don't think they're here, I don't know. I ain't met one yet. I think I have, but they aren't telling us. And I guess there's some good ones, actually. But you need to realize that they're coming and going all the time. They've been here for quite a while. So you got to be careful with what you're dealing with. Just because you see what looks like a man in front of you doesn't mean you're dealing with a man. You could be dealing with an angel that is still in the service to the Lord. Or you could be dealing with an angel that has fallen. Or you could be dealing with a hybrid. Oh, by the way, we do think that angels continue to fall at this point. They didn't just all do it then. Once in a while, they abandoned ship at this point, too. So that's what Pastor Jerry Wicke thinks. Pastor Paul Burnham, in his case, he thinks that our brothers and sisters are going to join us because we need help taking care of this mess we got here. So they're supposed to arrive by spacecraft, I guess. Pastor Paul's not alive anymore. I can't ask him any questions, or I would ask him. There is a day in the Lord in which the sun turns to sackcloth. Read your Bibles, that's the description. What does that mean, turns to sackcloth? Well, in my opinion, and I don't have this from anybody else, this is my opinion, that means the sun is covered in sunspots. And the problem is that in one of these passages it talks about everything on the surface going blind. The radiation from the sun destroys one's eyesight, one's vision. So, you need to be aware of where you can get underground. One of those big caves that were used previously in previous Earth ages. And believe me, the Earth is going to go through some birth pangs. That's described in the Bible all the time. You've got to read it, folks. It's right in there. So we also have that day of the Lord in which the sun becomes our enemy. We've got a lot of indicators indicating that the sun becomes our enemy. I mean, all life depends upon it, but I think the destruction, the resurrection, the recycling of planet Earth, I think that all comes, well, maybe not the recycling, but the preparation to recycle it. And Yahweh does the recycling, does the genesis, starts it anew. I think that's coming again soon. But who knows? That 13th house that I mentioned before might be coming into play this time. The devils don't know. We don't know either. You need to read these Bibles, people. You need to just read it as a history book. That's what it really is. Why do you want to read it? Well, the bad guys are using it for a playbook, quite literally. So if you want to know what's going on and you want to settle yourself down, then read it. Be open-minded. Just try to get the history, learn the characters' names, learn the plot, any character development, just like you're studying a Shakespearean play, or should I say a Sir Francis Bacon Kent play. You got to realize that there's been all kinds of shenanigans going on. Princess Diana was a wonderful woman. She was a Spencer. She actually was more entitled to that throne than the current queen is. And that whole family knew it. That's why they went after her. They also needed to reproduce. And they had to make sure they could do that. And these folks from the line of Cain always want to reproduce with the line of Yahweh. I guess it helps them to actually have children. There's something about them that doesn't allow them to remain fertile or stay fertile. It has to do with something with their bad habits, which I don't even want to repeat here. Pastor Barl Burnham said they had to eat the spleen. They had to get the blood. They had to get that. They couldn't skip more than a generation or they'd be sterile. So they might go a generation without indulging in that. One, with the children, they got to do it. That's according to him. That's kind of out there. It's out there even for me. I'm pretty open-minded. Folks, these people are using slow kill technology on us. They've been killing us for millennia. We can go back to when Abel got his brain slammed out with a rock in the field. We've got all kinds of deaths in the Bible. And we've actually got them accused of being responsible for all the deaths from Abel to, I think it was Zechariah. It's in the Bible. Read it. I'm not responsible for your education, folks. You are responsible for your own education. One of my teachers, on the way to graduate school, that's what she espoused. You are responsible for your own education. And it's quite true. No country is going to teach you what you need to know to be able to think for yourself. They're not going to teach you what you need to know to be able to overthrow them. But I'm going to tell you right now, the best things you can do is stop participating in the central government as best you can. I showed you that book by Stamper, Fruit from a Poisonous Tree with a blue cover. You need to get that book and read it. You'll be surprised to find out how un-American some of these government institutions are. You'll find out they aren't even government institutions, or they aren't legitimate. Okay, the United States Post Office. That's different from the United States Postal Service. I guess the Postal Service is owned by some group overseas. And then you've got your Federal Reserve System, which is not federal at all. That's how those guys took us over, by getting the permission to print our money, which they issued out of debt. Prior to that, we had gold and silver coin. We had honest money. We had biblical currency. And until we return to that, there's not much hope for us. As far as these elections go, I don't think there's been an honest one, including Woodrow Wilson. Since his time, I don't think there's been an honest one. Both parties are guilty of all that bullshit. It is treason. It is high treason. And what's the penalty for treason? I think we ought to have some public displays. We need people to be taught a lesson that you don't do this. So we've got treason in high places, evil in high places. And you people who think it doesn't matter who's in office, doesn't matter who's president, doesn't matter at all who's in office. Well, you're partly right, because that bureaucracy is there to stay. Or is it? It's there to stay until we pull the plug on them. Now, if I was president of this country, I don't know what I'd do first. I think the first thing I'd do is I would surround the legislative branches and the Supreme Court, and I'd have them all arrested for treason. Is it true that your Supreme Court justices are all paid by China a couple of $1 million a year? That they go over there and give lectures and are paid more, several times more than their salaries, like 10 times more money from the Chi-Coms? So who do you think they're beholden to? Would that not be a conflict of interest? They're all guilty of bad behavior. I can assure you of that. Even the guys that I like, I only like one of them now. Anton Scalia was murdered, that's for sure. Supreme Court Chief Justice Vinson was murdered in 1952. That's how they got this weird stuff through, whereby they forced us to mix up and destroy our neighborhoods, destroy our culture, destroy our civilization. Nothing wrong with the black family. Matter of fact, at the turn into the 20th century, I would guess, if we could get those stats, that they were better behaved than white people. Those men had more control over their families until Lyndon Baines Johnson, that murderer who murdered his own president, took office. You should hear his language and what he has to say. You weren't given welfare because it was a gift. It was given as a noose, as an enslavement. There should be no... one of the things I would do is I would ban welfare at the federal level. It's not in the Constitution. You're not allowed to do it. Yeah, welfare, right. Health and welfare. No. The federal government should be barred from doing that. Federal government can never do it efficiently, can never help the people who really need the help. They're very impotent, very corrupt. So there should be no such federal program. I get rid of the Department of Education. I'd leave it up to the states. And in your states, I would urgently advise you to get rid of taxing land for the purposes of providing a public indoctrination. That system is real bad. They should be fired. They're guilty of educational abuse, child sexual abuse, and child exploitation. All felonies. They should be fired. I would ban the teachers' union. I'd get rid of the Department of Education. There's no need to spend money on that stuff. And we won't be providing money to the states with all kinds of strings attached that you have to do it this way or else we're going to take the money back from you. No, we're going to stop that. We can cut this federal budget down, this federal government down, this monster down to size, bit by bit, chunk by chunk, one bite at a time. And I get rid of the Department of Homeland Security because they fail to do their jobs. They're useless. And as far as this TSA, it's worthless. They haven't been able to stop anything. They're not well run. I'd leave it up to the airlines. Provide your own security. If you don't like it, then go to another country, form your business. You're responsible for it yourself. Oh, and you don't get to hire anybody from that little postage stamp of an illegal nation over there, that group of frauds and thieves, band of bandits. You can't hire them anymore. You can't farm your work out to them. I certainly wouldn't have my intelligence apparatus going through that country so they had access to it all. You think that's a good idea? No. And that. By the way, the FBI is not a constitutional body. CIA might be constitutional as well. I haven't given it any thought. But the FBI never should have been allowed to exist. You see, all policies, which means policing, reserved to the states. I would go back to that, and I would urge the states that there be some jurisdictional interchange instead of having to form an FBI to babysit politicians and what's that called? Obstruction of justice? Yeah. The Federal Bureau of Obstruction of Justice. Yeah, I'd be getting rid of that group. Actually, I'd be taking them all into custody and debriefing them. And if they want to cooperate with the debriefers, then I'd be granting them leniency. And if they want to confess what they've done, then I would be working with them. If they didn't want to confess any of that and we discover it, again, folks, we need public displays of affection. Yeah, hug them by the neck, you know. Just hug their necks. That's the saying in the South. Oh, she hugged my neck. You know, right around the neck. You just give them a nice bear hug. And they can't resist when you put your arm around their neck, folks. But the South has got some incredible wisdom in their language. I love those people. Another thing besides the coining of currency is you want jobs and you want growth. No problem. We're going to go back to George Washington's tariffs and duties. As a matter of fact, we can keep this system of debt going at the same time we introduce gold coins, gold, silver, copper coins. And what we do is we reestablish the tariffs and duties. Now, I'd like to do it in a big way. In other words, I'd like to do a flat 8% tax. That's what every nation at the border pays on the value they declare. Every nation company that does business across any telephone lines, across the internet, declares the value of their services and pays into the United States Treasury. We could start at only 2% and increase it 1% a month on a monthly basis, while folks inside this country tool up and get ready to take their jobs back. So I would run the federal government on the tariffs and duties that come in. And I also would not allow the federal government to borrow. They're going to have to live on what they got the year before. They can't live on projected revenues. The hell with that. Let's tie their hands up. And as far as these congressmen, I'd take away all their pay and benefits. Oh, they may keep the franking privilege provided they do it with their own hand. I would also, on the Congress, follow the South's lead on the Congress and limit the number of people that a congressman can represent. There would be no term limits. I know you want them, but I don't want them. And the Founding Fathers argued about that tremendously, and they proved their point. If we're going to be a free people, they got to be free to choose the same guy over and over if they want him. But we won't pay them, and we won't provide any benefits for them. They can't do that for themselves anymore. So no medical benefits. They get to pay for their own medical insurance. I wouldn't wish the federal health insurance on anybody, even them. Yeah, I know. It was bad before Obamacare. It was, when I worked for the feds, it was pretty bad insurance. As my colleague said, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. What I would do is I'd pay them a per diem. Now, I think $300 a day is plenty, because I'm figuring you got $200 to spend the night, and you got $100 for your meals. That should be enough. But just to keep those egoistic, fat, satisfied, I'd bump it up. I'd bump it up to $400. If need be, to $500, but not above that. Oh, that's for the full day served. No partial days. No missed votes. And you can't abstain from a vote. If you want to vote present or absent, you don't get your per diem. If you want to vote, if you're not willing to say yes or no, and it's on the record, you don't get paid for the day. That's it. You don't get your $500, let's say. It's probably what it's going to take at the way they're debasing our currency. So, the Senate, I take them into custody too. Oh yeah. I'd be going through their stuff to find out who's going to work with us and who's not. However, they would no longer be senators because they were not elected properly. You see, the states are the parties to the Constitution. And when your state governments are no longer represented, then you no longer have a republic. What a horrible thing to talk us into. It's unconstitutional. So there will be no more direct election of senators. Instead, we'll go back, we'll revert, we'll go full circle, we'll return to self-rule, and we'll do what the founders had us doing. There will be 2 state senators that'll go down to D.C. at the federal level. I got company, and I'm going to stop this right now. Catch you later. Bye-bye.